Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Pastor Mike Haddad, and he's here today to talk about how the pandemic is changing the world of the ministry. Welcome to the show, Pastor Haddad.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again in this special time online.
Yeah, you're usually sitting here in the room with me, but I am now sitting in my living room and you are sitting in your home office because of the pandemic. And, probably this is probably nothing new for you because you're a youngster. So you grew up with technology. But when I started my show, maybe upwards of, 12 years ago, never did I think I'd be sitting in my living room hosting it. But these are surreal times. How has it changed how you work as a minister?
That's a great question. I was thinking about this earlier today. Sunday, and this is from a pastor's perspective. Sundays, I usually see 60 or 70% of the people who call Derby Community Church their church. I see them at the church building. And that's a time where I can connect with the majority of people who come to church. And not everybody comes to church every week. So, you see most of the people, not all of them. But at least I get to interact with and keep in touch with the majority of the people in person at church. And it's like, I can't think of a maybe correct analogy, but it's like killing 60 or 70 birds with one stone.
Right.
Because you're seeing every single person or the majority of people who come to the church on Sunday. And you might talk with them throughout the week, but at least you have that in-person time to greet them and see how they're doing and pray with them and check in on them. And now we don't have any of that. So my life has changed as a pastor quite a bit because now I'm talking with 60, 70, 80 people throughout the week, not at the same time, not in 3 hours time on Sunday. So in some ways for me, it's actually a lot more work. Going into this, I thought, man, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my time? But now that I have 60 or 70 or 80 people to check in with on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and I have to do that all individually for the most part, which, it's a lot different. And I can't go visit them and sit down and talk with them. I might be able to do something online, but a lot of it's through like writing letters or talking on the phone, which I love writing letters and I really don't mind talking on the phone. But as you can probably tell, Scott, I'd much rather see people in person. It's maybe not a burden, but it's definitely not a preference. I'd much rather be able to be there on Sunday morning or whenever else we have things going on during the week so that I can actually see people and connect with them face to face. However, I will say after the first couple weeks of being at home, I got kind of used to it. And day by day, it's become more and more enjoyable, especially as people have calmed down a bit. The first couple weeks after the stay-at-home order, people were really freaked out. And, who do you look to when you're freaked out? Your pastor or, someone else that you look to help you out at any normal time during your life. So that was a little bit overwhelming at first, just trying to connect with people and stay calm myself, because we're all dealing with the same stuff. Stay calm myself with my family, my kids, but also help other people to calm down, see the big picture, and connect with God and find comfort from Him. So after the first couple weeks, it kind of calmed down a bit. So now I can do a lot of my normal ministry, I guess,
Right.
um, and it's a little less overwhelming now, and it's been good. It's been good. It's been fun at times, um, and it hasn't necessarily become completely normal feeling, but it's become easier to deal with.
One of the things that I've noticed, even though you've been very proactive about getting yourself out on the internet world even before this, but now your parishioners can sit right there on Sunday morning and watch your sermon. So,
Mhm.
while you don't have a room full of parishioners,
Mhm.
I think you have the ability to actually reach more people.
Oh yeah, totally. You know, and it's hard to gauge, using online platforms exactly how many people you're reaching. But it is interesting, with YouTube or Facebook, when you put a video on there, it shows you how many view counts you get.
Right.
And it can be a little misleading because, you could have 3,000 views, but when you look at the analytics, it shows those are just like 2-minute views. Like they didn't watch the full hour of your service, but it
Right.
counts it in the total view count.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure how many people I'm reaching. Um, and I don't get too wrapped up in that because you could kind of, you could put your video online one week and say, wow, 500 people watch this.
Yeah.
And then the next week you put it online and you're like, what? Only 150 people watched it.
Right.
And then it fluctuates. What I really get a kick out of, though, especially with all of this, is so I have this email list, and every week I'm contacting everybody on that email list. It's just I send it out to everybody
Yeah.
like a Thursday weekly update. And now I've been doing 3 of those since this stay-at-home order. And so I send out a Tuesday message, a Wednesday message, and a Thursday message, usually geared around encouraging kind of things and comforting kind of things from the Bible. But and I also send out the service on Sunday to everybody on that email list. And there's well over 100 people on that, people that have signed up to receive that email. What's really fascinating is I'll be getting email messages about the service from people in Florida, Pennsylvania, uh, California, and around the world even, saying, "Dear Pastor Mike, so and so forwarded your service to me, and I live here in this part of the world, and I just want to let you know that your service was such a great encouragement to me." And these are people that I don't know, and I guarantee deal with this so
Oh,
often,
absolutely.
with the journal. Just a friend of a friend of a friend got a copy of the journal and they were touched by something, so they write back to you to let you know about it. And this is someone you don't know, you've never met. They don't know the first thing about you, you don't know the first thing about them, but they found something of encouragement or of value from something that you've written or that you've said. Um, and that's been a real blessing because we don't usually promote our church online to the extent that we have been the last few weeks. So I only very rarely get things like that, where it's like someone from the middle of the world, the other part of the world, is contacting me saying that I and the words that I shared from the Bible or whatever that touched them, or a prayer I said, or a song I sang. So that's been happening on a almost daily basis, where I'm getting emails or comments from people I've never met. So you're exactly right. In our normal mode of church operation, we tend to reach the people who are there
Right.
and not really the people outside the walls. We do, like, we all gather at the church building, we
Right.
share a service, and then those people who are there, myself included, are supposed to take the message of hope and love and encouragement outside of the walls.
Right.
And my church definitely does that, and I have so many stories of how they've done that, how they've been ministered to, and then they've gone and ministered to others, and that's really the way it's supposed to be. But with online now, um, if I send out one message, that might get forwarded dozens of times, um, and that's really neat. So it's like we're still doing the stuff that we've been doing, but just in a different way, is what I would say. It's not that we're doing anything that we hadn't been doing before. It's a different method, and it's been good in a lot of ways.
One group that you're actually connecting with and you're helping them reconnect to the church is people who grew up in the church who now live afar, because I
Oh,
know that personally, because when I post some of your stuff, I see little things pop up from people who, oh, I remember going to, like, if every year that I make it to sunrise service, I'll post
right.
photos, and it brings back people's memories of going there
Yeah.
throughout their childhood. Now, this year's sunrise service was canceled. Do you know how many years it's been since that tradition has been broken?
I have no idea, but if I had to guess, I would say it's been decades,
Yeah.
if not longer. I mean, the church was established in 1807, and I'm not sure what kind of sunrise Easter traditions they had back then, but I don't know. There's no telling if it was decades or even more than a century.
Now, how do you do your other? Because I know there's a lot more, contrary to popular belief and what I like to joke about, your work entails far more than 2 hours a week on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You have in all seriousness, you have a very intense schedule, and it goes throughout the week. It goes into the night. How do you do, like right now? If you have somebody getting ready to pass, are you allowed to still like go, like nursing homes are almost uh it's almost like a no man's land
Oh,
for
yeah. No, you can't.
I think you still can't, even if somebody's going to
I
pass.
I haven't so like I haven't had anybody in the hospital who um was dying and requested me to visit.
Right.
But everything's on lockdown, You even families can't visit in a lot of places can't visit their loved ones who are passing away. Now we have had so in the last month, I guess, we have had people from our church or connected to our church either pass away or lose a loved one. And that, I would say, is the biggest challenge for, and it's not really just churches, but for a lot of people, is finding different ways to grieve the loss of a loved one. From a pastor's perspective, yeah, that I would say is the single most difficult thing for me right now is, I can feel bad about people dealing with anxiety and not being able to connect with them. And I certainly feel bad about people dealing with, unemployment and you name it, um, having to transition their whole life around to manage. And I feel bad about that I can't be with them. But that's like one level of feeling bad. Like I can console myself a little bit and say, well, this is just the way it is. I don't have a choice. It's not like I'm choosing not to go visit these people and be with them and help them. It's just, this
Right.
is the way it is.
Right.
But what I feel absolutely terrible about is people losing loved ones and them not being able to have a funeral right now, or having to do it in the absence of family and loved ones, and me not being able to be with those people in person to help them through this time. Anytime someone I know passes away, or anytime the funeral home calls me and asks me, if I can do a funeral on such and such a date, and I commit to that, I always very soon after go and sit with a family, whether it's a family I know or not. And it sounds weird to say, but that's one of the favorite parts of my ministry is not, not funerals, but being there for people in a time of grief. Because I've dealt with that from a young age. When my father passed away when I was 9, and a lot of people came around and helped my family out. And so, you know, not only is being a pastor kind of my life's mission and work, but being there for people who are grieving is part of my life's mission and work. And yeah, that I can't think of a word to describe it. It just, I guess, to use pastor language, it just stinks.
Yeah.
And you can imagine stronger language, of course. It's terrible.
Right.
And I was also reflecting on that, when Lazarus died, when other people passed away, Jesus went to them, and he ministered to them, and he wept with people. And I was kind of jokingly thinking, how would Jesus deal with a pandemic? What would he have done? And I don't necessarily know, but I'm sure he would have felt the same kind of he would
Right.
have felt the same kind of grief that I feel not being able to minister to people. And that's just like the heart of a shepherd and a pastor.
Right.
A lot of people are dealing with that. We've had some very wonderful people pass away, and one couple in particular, the wife passed away, and it was right at the beginning of all this when they shut the schools down and everything. And I didn't even hesitate. I thought, well, maybe I'm not supposed to go and visit this person, but I did anyway. And the state police were there. Whenever somebody passes away, first responders show up. And the state police, this was very early on when it was just starting out in March. They gave me the blessing pretty much to come come inside the house and be with the gentleman who lost his wife. And I did give him a hug. I don't know. I couldn't be there and not shake his hand and give him a hug and pray with him. Today, being as far into it as we are, if someone passed away and there was some grieving family, I'd probably just go to their house and talk to them through the window. Um, I definitely don't want to fly in the face of what the state is asking for all of us to do, and churches aren't outside of that. I will gladly respect what the state has asked us to do, but there are other creative ways. And should today somebody pass away and their family be left grieving, yeah, I definitely think I would go and just talk to them through their window or something. Anything I could do to minister to them.
Or even like what I do. As you know, my father, he's 85, and I will commend both of my brothers. I don't think my father has ever eaten so good as in we've been keeping him fed, but it's really strange. The way we do it is we bring him the food, set it on a chair on the porch, and then we're outside. He's inside, we're outside talking. Even though one day it was a really sunny day, we sat on his lawn, all stationed in different places, and we did what we were supposed to do. And but there really is, I believe, with all this bad stuff going on, as in people dying, there's little grains of really good things. Like, I hope some of us don't forget how to, I run into goodwill wherever I go.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I know a lot of attention has been spent on the medical folks, and not to take away from them, because they're very important, but also on the front lines are those store people, the postal people, people like them who are also keeping the world running. And I think, yes, they're experiencing some people who are taking out the world's problems on them, but also I think that on the flip side, there's a lot of people who are looking at them totally differently, and I find a lot of goodwill going on in the world.
Yeah, um, as a church, we don't really promote every good thing that's going on. Kind of part of our faith is we don't show off so
Right.
much. We try and spread the good news and the hope, but I can say there's just been a lot of neat things that I've experienced. And I guess the shame of it is, as a pastor, you see so many good things that nobody else would ever see. Um, People that would like to remain anonymous because they don't want to show off and bring attention to themselves. And I have seen a lot of that on Facebook where people will do good things and they'll take a picture of it and tell people how they're doing good things. And yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for that for sure. And I think it's cool that we're able to see so many people doing so many good things. Personally, I try not to do that a whole lot as a pastor and as a church, because we're not trying to bring attention to ourselves so much. But I will share with you some really neat things that have been
Right.
happening. So, ladies in the church, they took it upon themselves to sew hundreds of masks, and one, to donate to the hospitals, um, and they're doing such a wonderful job. And two, to make sure everybody in the church, and not just in the church, but anybody who wants one, has a mask, because that's part of this new some of the new guidelines is to wear a mask out in public. I have a mask. I would put it on for you if I had it in my office, but it's out in the
I
kitchen.
was just going to say the same thing. I have one too that I would put on, but it's not here.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so I just thought that was super neat that I didn't, it wasn't my idea. It wasn't like, hey, let's have a committee to make masks. It was just this woman over here got her sewing stuff out and started making a mask. This woman over here started making one. And all of a sudden it's like we have a dozen or more women sharing elastic and sharing fabric and making masks and keeping lists of who has one and who needs one. So that was really neat. And then, there's just a lot of generosity within the church and within the community. Almost on a weekly basis, I receive some sort of money or gift cards, and which is really crazy to me, that people would just put money in my hands. Sometimes gift cards, but also sometimes cash. And they trust me to take this cash and use it to bless other people. And it's flattering that they trust me enough to do that. And I do take it, and it's like people, it's like they're depositing it to me, and then I'm um, given the privilege and opportunity to forward it to other people. So, just a couple things I have here in my office. I have an envelope with $100 in it, and
Right.
it's like, here, Pastor Mike, use it for anybody who needs groceries or whatever. And then people keep dropping off gift cards to like Price Chopper.
Right.
Dozens of gift cards, not like $10 gift cards, but like $50 gift cards. And that's almost like a part-time job, actually. People don't realize one of the most difficult aspects of being in ministry is these kind of direct services of helping people.
Right.
It's easy, okay? Like, say I have $100 and I say I would like to donate this $100 to the Derby Community Church, and in the memo of the check, say, for helping others with groceries.
Right.
That is an easy way to give, and it's important. The hard part, though, and what a lot of people and what a lot of organizations are dealing with right now with these acts of generosity is how to take that generosity and disperse it.
Right.
Um, Especially because a lot of people are slow to ask for help. And so I've run into many scenarios where I give somebody a gift card that I think could use it, that maybe didn't ask for it, and they send it right back. And it's like, well, now I have this gift card again, and I don't know who to give it to. And I
Yeah.
thought I was giving it to the right person. Right now, what I'm dealing with is because we're kind of, I don't know if we're in the middle of this or where we are, if you take this as a whole with the pandemic and then the all the stuff that's going to happen after the virus goes away, I'm at the point where I'm taking in so much of people's generosity,
Right.
and people are getting their stimulus checks and they still have some money in their bank account. But what's going to happen is I'm going to have just like this stockpile of stuff that people have donated, and I'm just going to feel like Santa Claus on Christmas. Just people are going to have so many needs in the next month or two,
Oh, that's true.
and I'm just going to be able to, you know, give this stuff away left and right.
So, Mike, we only have about 2.5 more minutes left. What more would you like to say? Because you know what, we could go on forever on this topic
Oh yeah.
because it's just such a big issue. Because I understand. I've seen all this generosity that's going on in this world. I know some people choose to focus on those few people who, whether they're just not happy people or whether they're stressed out, the ones who are acting out. But I
Mhm.
find that it has brought out some real goodness in this world. So
Yeah, I'd say we're very blessed to live in the Northeast Kingdom, and we're very blessed to have the community that we have. And it's when I moved up here, a lot of people ask why, and I would just like to encourage the people that live here. What I've seen going on throughout this pandemic in the Northeast Kingdom is why I moved up here. Is the aspect of community and people living in the community taking care of each other. There's other reasons why I moved up here to come to this church, and I like Vermont anyway. But that's really one of the big draws that brought me, even as a young person, up to Vermont in the Northeast Kingdom, is because when this pandemic hit our region and when things started to close down, what you saw was not just a bunch of people cloistering off and hiding in their houses. We have to do that, but what a lot of people have been doing is finding ways to take care of their neighbor or their loved ones or their friends or even strangers. And so I'd just like to say a word of encouragement to all the people of the Northeast Kingdom. I'm impressed. And it's one thing to be impressed as an insider, you know, it's another thing to be impressed as an outsider. Because that's harder to do, is to impress somebody who's outside, I moved up here from Massachusetts, but I'm impressed and I'm thoroughly impressed. I'm impressed at how caring people are up here. I'm impressed at how careful people have been to, do what they need to do so this thing doesn't spread in our area. I'm impressed at how quickly people found ways to take care of one another and how quickly it's just second nature. It's not, okay, now I need to learn how to care for the people in my community. They didn't have to learn it. They grew up, it's in their blood. And I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but it almost seems that way up here. It's just, and you say this often, Scott, is sure there's a lot of bad news and there's a lot of, we could point fingers at people and say, this generation is lazy and this,
yeah,
but
yeah.
what I've seen more than anything is people responding to this pandemic um, by figuring out ways to help other people, and whether it's making masks or writing cards or giving stuff to organizations and to food banks and to churches to be able to help other people, you know that is overwhelming in the best way possible.
as I'm fond of saying about the Northeast Kingdom, we like to play together. We like to work together. Sometimes we like to fight. But when push comes to shove, we're typically there for one another. I think we're handling this well, and I commend you for all of your work you're doing.
Well, I commend you for all your work that you're doing.
And I appreciate you coming on. So we'll have you back on some other time, hopefully in better times.
Yeah, sounds good.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.